Eli Pariser, the author of The Filter Bubble and also the board president of MoveOn.org. Eli, you've written a very controversial and in many ways critical book about the internet. Does your book reflect in some ways a disillusionment on the left amongst progressives with the internet? Because in the 90s and even a few years ago, the internet was embraced by progressives as a solution to various kinds of corporate dictatorships. Do you think, a symbol of that disillusionment amongst progressives with the internet?
Well, it's not a disillusionment with the idea of the internet, the promise of the internet, but it is a disillusionment with how things are actually going. I bought the mythology that said that there were these corporate gatekeepers in a broadcast
the bad
society.
Guys like AOL and Time Warner.
Well, right, and that the internet came along and swept them all away. All of a sudden, we can all talk to each other freely. It's a decentralized, democratized media, and really that isn't what's happened. Most people experience the internet through a handful of very large companies that have a lot of the same commercial imperatives that the old media gatekeepers.
You mean like Google and Facebook?
Google and Facebook, sure. And they have a lot of the same dynamics that are driving what they show people and what they hide from people as the old media did. And so it's not quite as much of a free-for-all as a lot of us hoped. You don't go direct. You don't talk to a friend directly online. You talk to them via Facebook, and you don't go direct to a small business. You go through Google, and what happens in the middle there shapes a lot of your experience of what happens and what doesn't online.
As an activist and someone who's been very involved with MoveOn.org and clearly someone who's very concerned with many of the social and economic problems in America, what do you make of the ideology of the young men who have grown infinitely rich at companies like Google and Facebook, and yet also seem to maintain the idea that they cannot do any evil and that they are doing good in the world, and that like the Google boys can make a huge amount of money, buy a plane and jet off to Africa every so often when they want to improve the lot of humanity?
Well, mostly, to be charitable, I would say that...
Well, I don't want you to be charitable. You're on TechCrunch. You've got to be uncharitable.
I do think that part of this is you have people who have no particular interest in politics or political decision-making or civic life, who really, just wanted to build stuff, all of a sudden making decisions that affect millions, sometimes billions of people's lives in that very way. None of these are people who would ever run for mayor or city councilman or senator.
They may eventually. They may be the sort of the Donald Trump style candidates.
We'll see. But that's not the personality type. These are not people who like the messy, complicated, world of human glad handing that much. They like building stuff. And the problem is that the choices that they're making and how these things are architected have huge consequences that are political. And I think they're a little bit bipolar about those about the dynamics there. On the one hand, they sort of acknowledge that. They say, don't be evil, and they, Mark Zuckerberg talks about a transparent, connected world. On the other hand, when you sort of challenge what they're doing, when you say, why doesn't Facebook care more about, things that are important but not very likable? They say, well, nobody has to use Facebook. We're not really trying to, it's just for fun. It's just a service. Use it or don't use it. They sort of step back from that responsibility. And I really don't think you can have it both ways. If Zuckerberg wants Facebook to be a utility like a phone company, as he's sometimes said.
So he's essentially a utilitarian in a good Benthamite sense, right?
Well, no. He wants. If he wants it to be like a phone company, then you can't say, well, we're going to tape all your phone calls, and if you don't like it, don't get a phone. You have to accept the responsibility that comes with being the place where a lot of the public conversation is happening.
And are young men like Zuckerberg and Larry Page capable of living up to that responsibility?
I think some of them can be. I think they can more. I think the argument, some people say, well, this is all just, we're all doomed because these are big corporations, they don't care about anything other than profits. And I think the flip side of that is that we've actually had a lot of media institutions that do care about stuff more than profits. I mean, whatever you think of a lot of the major media, the New York Times, CBS News, they're not only putting on the stuff that would be the most tune-inable or watchable or readable. They're also trying to provide some stuff of general of civic value, and I think we could imagine that Google and Facebook would say, well, we're making enough billions as it is. We can afford to optimize for a long-term good experience as opposed to a short-term, very personalized, narrow view of the world.